It began, as many secrets do, in silence. Deep in the archives of an old European university, untouched for decades, a student named Elias uncovered a locked wooden chest hidden behind crumbling volumes of 17th century anatomy journals. He was cataloguing forgotten materials for a research fellowship, a task others found tedious. Elias found it thrilling. Every creaking drawer was a doorway to the past. But this chest was different. Carved from aged oak and bound with iron, its lid bore an emblem Elias didn't recognize, a serpent devouring its tail, an Ouroboros, but split in half, forming a mirrored spiral. Beneath the dust, a single Latin phrase shimmered faintly: clavis abdite veritatis, the key to hidden truth. He didn't force it open. He photographed the emblem, recorded the location, and requested permission from the university's curator. But permission never came. The chest vanished overnight. Elias was not deterred. The next morning, tucked into one of the journals near where the chest had been, he discovered something the thief had missed: a folded parchment map, stained, with age marked not with locations, but with sigils, equations, and old alchemical symbols. Along the margin were notes written in the same hand throughout, frantic and angular. Not a place, a process. The symbols pointed to a remote village in the Austrian Alps, Halleberg, nearly lost to time and tourism. According to archived records, it was once home to a reclusive 17th century natural philosopher, Anselm Reither, who vanished under mysterious circumstances. His final paper, never published, was titled Transmutatio Mentis, on the transformation of mind. Elias took leave from the university. This was no longer a side project, it was a calling. He arrived in Halleberg under a cold rain, notebook and camera in hand, the map carefully hidden beneath his coat. The village was sparse and quiet, flanked by sharp grey peaks. Most homes were shuttered for the season. The local innkeeper, a leathery woman named Marta, was curious about his visit. When Elias mentioned Anselm Reither, her eyes narrowed. "No, one goes to the manor," she warned. Reither's manor stood in ruin on the northern cliff, reachable only by a winding path overgrown with pine. Elias waited until morning. Fog rolled low over the valley as he hiked up, boots crunching over frost. The manor was 3 stories of stone and shadow, its upper floor collapsed, vines like veins running along its facade. Inside, the air smelled of damp paper and ash. Most of the interior had been gutted by time or fire, but in the cellar, half buried by earth, Elias found a chamber lined with bookshelves, still intact. The books were in Latin, Greek, and a ciphered script that sent chills down his spine. In the center of the room, on a pedestal of marble, was a brass mechanism shaped like the split Ouroboros. It clicked softly when touched. Underneath it, a hollow socket as if awaiting something to complete it. A key. Elias began translating the texts obsessively. He lived in the manor by candlelight, venturing to the village only for supplies. Texts were strange. Philosophical treatises disguised as alchemical recipes, diary entries woven with diagrams of the nervous system, descriptions of a practice Reither called veritas animae, the truth of the soul. They hinted that Reither believed consciousness itself could be refined, purified like lead into gold. But the final pages of every book were missing, torn clean. One night, while studying a ciphered page under magnification, Elias noticed the ink shimmered slightly. He heated the parchment. Letters bloomed in the margins, an invisible layer of writing, a date, a formula, and coordinates. They pointed not to another place, but to an event. a solar alignment set to occur in 3 weeks directly over Halleberg, and beneath it a phrase burned into the page. "The key is not found, it is remembered." That night, Elias dreamed of firelight, stone circles, and a voice whispering in forgotten tongues. He awoke before dawn, heart racing, knowing the true journey was just beginning. He was no longer seeking knowledge. He was being summoned by it. The sun did not rise the next morning. It merely revealed itself through a veil of mist. Elias stood at the edge of the manor's collapsed courtyard, map in hand, and felt the heavy breath of the mountains surrounding him. He returned to the chamber beneath the manor. The room felt subtly altered, as if responding to his presence. The brass mechanism, the split Ouroboros, hummed faintly when he entered. He placed his hand on it. It was warm. He examined the ciphered books again, focusing now on the invisible ink formula. With the right heat and a tincture made from alcohol and mugwort, the kind Ryther had referenced in one of his recipes, more of the hidden text surfaced. This time, it revealed something startling: instructions for constructing a device, Ryther called the vox animae, the voice of the soul. According to the hidden passages, the device amplified the latent resonances of the human mind, converting internal frequencies into audible shapes. It was not meant to be heard, but felt. It could evoke memories, sensations, even states of ecstasy. Elias began searching the manor's debris for parts, coils, lenses, copper shards. Hours turned into days. He lived on black bread and soup from the village, never explaining his purpose. Marta watched him carefully. One night, she left him a note beneath his soup bowl. "If you hear the bell, do not answer it." He didn't understand. The next evening, while testing a copper wire on the vox animae's frame, a deep, low bell rang through the manor's stone, not from outside, but within. It echoed in the walls, vibrating in his bones. He froze. It rang once more and stopped. Elias did not answer it, but he followed the vibration down past the cellar to a hidden crawl space behind a crumbled wall. There he found something impossible, a second chamber, circular, perfectly preserved, lit not by flame or electricity, but by a soft, ambient glow from the ceiling stone. In the center, a mirror. Not just glass, but polished obsidian, framed in symbols that shimmered as he approached. Carved along its rim were the same words he had read on the chest: Clavis abditae veritatis, the key to hidden truth. He reached toward the surface of the obsidian, and it moved. It rippled like water. Then a voice, his own, but not, echoed from within. "You are not the first." Elias stumbled back, heart pounding. He had not unlocked the chamber. It had remembered him. The mirror's surface settled, becoming solid once more. Elias stood frozen, the voice still echoing in his mind. "You are not the first." His breath caught in his throat, and for a long moment the room was silent again, unnaturally so. Not a whisper of wind, nor creak of stone, as if the air itself were holding its breath. He reached for his notebook, scrawled the phrase across the page, and sat cross-legged before the mirror. The symbols around the obsidian edge pulsed faintly, and Elias began to trace them one by one with his finger. Latin, Hebrew, Proto-Greek, all interconnected through geometry rather than language. They told a story, or perhaps a mechanism. Back in the upper library chamber, he pored over Ryther's texts for references to mirrors or reflection. He found a torn page in a diary bound in snakeskin. The mirror remembers that which the mind forgets. What it reveals is not illusion, but recursion, the self upon itself. Over the next few days, Elias performed a series of controlled experiments. He recorded himself speaking near the mirror, standing before it at different times of day, entering the room with various materials: iron, quartz, bone. At dawn on the 5th day, the mirror shimmered again. This time, it showed an image. Not Elias, but the manor as it once was, grand, unbroken, glowing with candlelight and voices. He could hear people chanting in Latin, a ritual in progress. In the center stood Ryther himself, younger than expected, his eyes fierce and alight with conviction. Then Ryther turned and looked straight at Elias. Veritas non queritur, the reflection said. It awakens. Truth is not sought, it awakens. The image vanished, the mirror stilled. Elias dropped to his knees. His understanding had shifted. This was not a device, it was a threshold. He now believed the manor was built atop a convergence point, a ley intersection, as ancient maps had hinted, where consciousness could echo across time. The mirror was a receiver, not of images, but of sentience itself. On the 7th day, Marta came to the manor uninvited. She stood in the doorway of the chamber, eyes dark, shoulders square. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she asked. Elias nodded slowly. She stepped inside. "Then you need to see this." From her coat, she produced a locket. Inside was a photograph, not a modern one, but a daguerreotype from the 1800s. In the background stood the mirror. In the foreground stood a man. It was Elias. Marta said nothing as she left the room, leaving him alone with a truth so sharp it silenced thought. Who was he? Or rather, who had he been? That night, the bell rang again. But this time, Elias answered. Elias descended into the chamber, the bell's call still pulsing in his ears like a memory he had never lived. The glow from the obsidian mirror was dim now, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He crossed the threshold, and the air changed, thicker, resonant, almost warm. He stood before the mirror. Nothing moved, but then he noticed something new. A symbol had appeared at the base of the obsidian frame. A triangle within a circle, split by a vertical line, etched with such precision it looked burned into the stone. He reached toward it, hesitating only for a moment, and pressed his fingertips to the symbol. A sharp pain lanced through his palm, as if the stone had stung him. He pulled back. Blood welled at his skin, and the mirror came alive. The surface rippled again, revealing not a vision, but a door. Behind the glass, a spiraling corridor unfolded, endless, impossible, lit with golden veins pulsing like arteries. And standing within it was a figure robed in black, its face hidden beneath a smooth, featureless mask. The figure raised a hand. Elias blinked, and the mirror returned to stillness. But something had changed. His hand was no longer bleeding. Where the blood had touched the stone, the symbol now glowed faintly, and within his mind something whispered, not in words, but in pulses of sensation, urgency, recognition, and an unshakable invitation. Back in the upper chamber, Elias found a new entry in one of Ryther's ciphered books. He was sure it hadn't been there before. In the margins, barely visible under candlelight, it read, "Only the marked may pass. The bell awakens the path. The blood recalls the oath." He could no longer pretend this was academic. That night, Marta returned. "You touched it, didn't you?" she asked, her voice hollow. Elias nodded. "What is it?" "A remnant," she said. "A conduit, That mirror is not a window, it is a scar." A scar? Marta sat heavily on a stone bench. When Ryder disappeared, he wasn't the first. And you're not the first to follow him, but you might be the last. She unrolled a piece of cloth from her bag. Inside, a shard of black stone, identical in sheen to the mirror. Carved upon it, in the same etched hand, were the words clavis sanguinem. The key is the blood. Elias felt a shiver crawl through him. "What happened to them?" he asked. "The others?" Marta didn't answer. She simply handed him the shard. As his fingers closed around it, his vision blurred. The room twisted, and for a moment he saw through the stone a circle of figures chanting around a blazing symbol, their eyes all turned towards someone at the center. Himself. He gasped, and the vision snapped. The shard crumbled too, dust in his hand. Marta was gone. Only the bell echoed again, low, slow, and now somehow familiar. Elias turned back toward the mirror, no longer afraid. He knew what it wanted, and he was ready to remember. Elias stood before the mirror for what felt like hours, the silence between the bell's last toll and the present thick with anticipation. He was no longer the same man who had stepped into the manor. His thoughts had weight. His blood remembered things his mind could not name. He touched the glowing symbol again. This time, the mirror did not open with spectacle. It softened. It yielded like a curtain of breath, and Elias stepped through. He expected cold. He found warmth, not heat, but familiarity. He was inside the spiraling corridor he had seen earlier, its walls alive with golden veins. They pulsed gently, like a heartbeat too vast to belong to a single creature. And then the voice returned. Not through his ears, but directly into his spine. "You bring the mark and the memory. You may continue." He did not ask where or how. He simply walked. The corridor branched into chambers, each one echoing with remnants of other lives. A room filled with shifting sand and laughter in languages Elias had never heard. Another with mirrors that reflected possibilities instead of reality. And one silent space where a heartbeat, his, thundered like a storm. At the end of the fourth passage, he entered a library unlike the one in the manor above. Here, books floated, suspended in soft beams of amber light. They opened as he neared them, pages fluttering like birds before, settling into stillness. The first book read only to refine the soul is to recall its fire. Another, pleasure is the proof of presence. He absorbed their messages not as knowledge but as sensation. Each phrase lit a nerve, a memory, a capacity inside him long dormant. His breath deepened, his posture shifted. He felt larger than his body. A final book landed before him, its cover etched with a symbol he now understood instinctively. The alchemical sign for union between mind and flesh. It opened to a diagram, anatomical, intricate, but shimmering with motion. It showed pathways that existed not on the skin, but through it. Nerve, breath, thought, all part of the same lattice. And at the center, a flame. He reached toward the page, and once more the world shifted. He found himself standing in a wide circular hall, columns spiraling up into darkness. In the center, the masked figure. Elias stepped forward. "Who are you?" The mask tilted. The voice returned. "I am what remains when the seeker becomes the flame." The figure extended a hand. In its palm, an object, a key. Not metal, but bone. Living. Beating, Elias took it. Fire rushed through him, not pain, but clarity. Memories poured in, not his, but ancient. Figures standing in the same hall, generation after generation, seekers all, each bearing the mark, each unlocking a new truth. He dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. The voice softened. "You are not the
Keeper of the key, you are the key." Light erupted around him, not blinding but enveloping. Every nerve sang, every scar, every silence, every forgotten wonder returned in radiant clarity. When he awoke, he was back in the manor's mirror chamber. The
mirror was dark, but Elias glowed faintly, and in his palm the key pulsed. Still alive, for 3 days, Elias did not sleep. The glow from his skin faded, but something in him remained altered. He could feel it, subtle like a second heartbeat. His perception sharpened, his dreams came while he was awake, and time began to feel less like a river and more like a spiral. He documented everything, the shape of the key, the patterns it pulsed in, the words that echoed still. "You are the key." He scoured Ryther's library again and again, returning to every page, every cipher. And there, embedded between 2 pages in a forgotten folio, he found a folded parchment sealed in wax. The seal bore the same emblem from the mirror. The Ouroboros split into a mirrored spiral. He broke it. Inside was a map, not geographical, but anatomical. A human body rendered in golden ink, overlaid with symbols, circuits, and celestial glyphs. At the bottom, the words Codex Ignis, the fire that binds. Each line on the diagram pulsed in rhythm with the key in his hand, and then Elias understood. The key was not a tool, it was a tuner, a resonator for aligning the self to something vast, something ancient. The Codex mapped the exact flows of energy, thought, emotion, and spirit through the human form. A living philosophy, a process of becoming. He began the practice described in the margins: slow breathwork, specific hand positions, mantra-like vocalizations. The first night he felt warmth, the second, clarity. On the third, he felt fire, not
literal flames, but a wave of memories so strong it shattered his grip on the present.
He saw Ryther again, not in a vision, but through his own eyes, as if he had been Ryther. The manor restored, the mirror lit, the first ignition. Then came pain, a splitting across the spine. Elias collapsed. He awoke, not on the stone floor, but in bed, his bed, back at the inn. Marta sat beside him. "You crossed too fast," she said. "You let the Codex burn without guiding it." "You knew," Elias whispered. "You've seen it." "I was called once," she said. "But I refused the key." She handed him a small object, a fragment of bone carved with a spiral. "It's yours now," she said, "but not forever. The fire must move, or it consumes." Elias clutched the key. The pulse was stronger now. That night, he returned to the manor. The mirror was silent, but now he didn't need it. He knew where to go. He placed the bone key in the brass mechanism on the pedestal. It fit, and the entire manor breathed. Stone groaned. Light flared. Books rose from their shelves, and from beneath the floor, a stairway spiraled downward, lit by flame, echoing with whispers not of fear, but of initiation. Elias descended. The fire was calling him home. The spiral staircase seemed impossibly deep, coiling like a nautilus into the bowels of the earth. Elias descended slowly, the flame light revealing walls etched with carvings, glyphs that danced between the alchemical and the biological symbols that pulsed faintly as he passed. At the bottom, the air was warmer, but not from heat. It was as though the space itself remembered light. The chamber opened into a dome of stone, and in its center rose a structure that was not quite a temple and not quite a machine. It breathed. Pillars of crystalline metal curved upward like ribs, and at their center hovered a sphere of liquid light, constantly shifting, never falling. Around it, a ring of 8 plinths, each inscribed with one of the foundational elements: salt, sulfur, mercury, and 5 others not known to the periodic table, but to the soul. As Elias stepped closer, the key pulsed violently in his hand, then grew warm.
A line of light emerged from the sphere and touched the bone spiral. The plinths activated in sequence: salt, sulfur, mercury, spirit, breath, echo, will, fire. The final word echoed longer, as if the stone itself reverberated with it. Elias dropped to one knee.
The sphere expanded, revealing within it a vision, not a memory, but a transmission, an interface. He saw himself, standing not in the manor, but in a city. Modern, fractured, hollowed by disconnection. Around him, people moved like ghosts,
Fire within them dim. This was not meant to be forgotten, the voice said. The fire was seeded in you to awaken the rest. The vision collapsed, and the sphere solidified. The key dimmed.
Elias understood now. The philosopher's key was never meant to open a door for one. It was meant to ignite the many. But to do so, he would have to carry the flame beyond the manor. As he stood, the temple machine began to disassemble itself. The sphere contracted, folding into a single droplet of glowing matter, which hovered before him. He reached out, the droplet entered his chest, and everything changed. Every step back up the spiral was like walking through different layers of himself. Memory, vision, possibility, fear, hope. He emerged not as Elias the scholar, or the seeker, or even the key. He emerged as the flame bearer, and above the mirror waited no longer a passage, but a reflection of what was now awakened. The sky above Halleberg had changed. Elias emerged from the manor beneath a dawn of unusual clarity. Clouds hung motionless, as if pausing to watch. Birds did not sing, wind did not move, the world awaited. Back in the village, Marta stood outside, the inn, staring up at the manor's silhouette. She turned as Elias approached, her eyes wide, not with fear but awe. "You brought it back," she said softly. He nodded. Words felt too small now. Instead, he extended his hand. In his palm, a soft golden light swirled, gentle, inviting, alive. Marta stepped forward and placed her hand over his. Her breath caught, her knees nearly gave way. And then she smiled, truly smiled, for the first
time in years. "The fire knows," she whispered. "I remember now." Words spread quickly, quietly. As if on instinct, people came, not all at once but drawn, as if by scent or dream. The villagers, the forgotten ones, the wanderers returning
home. Some only watched, others stepped forward. Each who touched Elias's hand changed, not visibly, but inwardly. Their shoulders dropped, their spines straightened, their eyes cleared, and one by one they began to glow. Elias no longer explained, he only guided. He taught the breath, the silence, the alignment of hand and heart. He shared the Codex, not the text, but the feeling of it, encoded now in every movement of his being. Then the letters came from far beyond the Alps, from cities where no one had spoken of Halleberg in a generation, from seekers who had dreamed of spirals, of serpents, of flame, from people who had never met Elias, but who felt him, knew him, as though he had already passed through them. They arrived in the hundreds, and soon the manor was no longer a ruin. They repaired it not with stone, but with memory. They cleared the garden, lit the candles, sang the old songs as if they had never been forgotten. In the nights, they gathered beneath the stars, and the mirror shimmered again, not as a door, but as a witness. Elias stood at the center, no longer alone. In the glow of this new fellowship, he understood the philosopher's key had never belonged to any single hand. It was a circuit, waiting to be completed, and now it was, but one final truth remained. He could still feel it beneath the ground, pulsing deep where the spiral descended. One more passage, one more unlocking, and when it opened, it would not be for him, it would be for all of them. The night before the final passage, Elias stood alone before the mirror. It no longer rippled or shimmered. It simply reflected a man carrying the trace of ancient fire in his breath and in his blood. Around him, the manor had become a sanctuary, a beacon, but the pulse beneath the earth still beat. Faint, deep, older than language. A final invitation. He returned to the spiral stairwell, now lined with lanterns left by the fellowship. As he descended, he noticed something strange. The air did not grow colder. It felt alive. At the base of the stair, the temple machine had transformed. The sphere was gone. In its place stood a new doorway, black, seamless, but warm to the touch. There were no locks, no handles, only a symbol. The same one burned into Elias's palm. He placed his hand against it. The doorway responded, not with movement, but with memory. A flood of sensation, of moments not yet lived, futures possible and impossible, children singing in unknown languages, cities built from thought, hands extended in peace, fire shared, not feared, and at the center of it all, the gate, not a place, not even a device, but a state of being. Elias understood. This gate was not meant to be opened with strength or knowledge. It responded only to resonance. And now, the
resonance lived not just in him, but in the many. He turned and climbed the stairs once more. At the summit, the gathered fellowship waited.
Some familiar, others new, all watching. "I cannot open it," Elias said. Murmurs spread, doubt flickered. "But we can." He reached for the hands beside him, Marta to one side, a boy named Yannick to the other. One by one, the circle formed. They stood beneath the stars, the manor pulsing faintly behind them. Together, they breathed, aligned, remembered, and below, without a single sound, the unseen gate began to glow. Not open, become. The next morning, there was no sunrise, only light. It came from everywhere, the soil, the sky, the bodies of those gathered, not blinding but whole, a radiance without source yet full of meaning. The gate had not opened into a realm, but into them. And then, silence, not empty, but complete. Elias stood in the center, eyes closed, breath even. Around him, the circle stood hand in hand. The resonance had passed through them and left something behind, not a doctrine, not a ritual, but a knowing, a shared seed. From the depths, the doorway remained, still seamless, still quiet. they did not descend again. The fellowship dispersed. Slowly over the weeks that followed, some returned to their homes, others stayed in Halleberg. A few vanished without a trace, leaving behind only symbols etched into trees or left beneath pillows, spirals, flames, Ouroboroi. Elias wrote nothing more in his notebooks. He simply lived. The manor breathed quietly, no longer in need of fire or fear. Visitors came and went. Some found answers, others left with better questions. And all of them, in some way, were changed. One day, many years later, a child discovered a chest buried in the snow behind the village chapel. Locked, oak-bound with iron. A serpent coiled around itself, split into a mirrored spiral. Inside,
No gold, no relics, just a folded map, a single page from a Codex Ibyanaki, waiting, remembered. He passed on. The fire never ended, it simply moved.